For my Tuesday 6:20 class, and this is also going to be used in the Thursday 11:30 class. All right, from bashing to smashing. Etsuko was getting more than a little suspicious. Her husband Seiji had been coming home battered and bruised every other week for about 2 months. He had cuts to his face and his hands were sometimes bleeding. But when Etsuko confronted him about it, Seiji replied that he had picked up the injuries during his job as a construction worker. There had been a lack of romance in their relationship since they had a baby, Kenchan, the year before. There had been a lack of romance in their relationship since they had a baby, Kenchan, the year before. She felt physically and emotionally drained. Romance was low on the list of priorities. And as Etsuko's round-the-clock attention was on the baby while Seiji worked hard to pay the 50,000 yen a month rent on their tiny one-room house in Yahiro, northeast Tokyo, and ensure there was always rice in the cupboard. After cleaning the house one day, making some nikujaga, and while the baby was sleeping, Etsuko started to reread her diary, which she wrote each day in a big old-fashioned notebook. She realized that the evenings when Seiji came home all beaten up were on the days with 2 at the end, the 2nd, 12th, and 22nd. They also coincided with the times when he would show so much affection for her. He would return home with some maguro sushi from her favorite shop and a bottle of wine. Etsuko was worried though, so on February 12th, when Seiji returned unusually early, skipped dinner, and said he wanted to take their Shibaken for a walk, she stalked him. Seiji walked down to the Arakawa River, and Etsuko followed, at a discreet distance, with Kenchan strapped to her back. Seiji tied their dog to a pole beside the Kinegawa Bridge and then disappeared among a circle of about 50 men who were standing under the bridge. She thought there was some illegal gambling going on, and she was right. But when she pushed her way through the men, she saw something that blew her mind. The men spoke in hushed tones, but had agitated looks on their faces and were The men spoke in hushed tones, but had agitated looks on their faces and were passing cash to a bald old man in a tracksuit, who would then hand them some kind of ticket. Etsuko saw that the men were surrounding 2 bare-knuckle fighters, and one of them was her husband. Seiji, who was fit and strong from working at the construction site, was getting a pummeling from a guy who looked like he could do a good job in K1. But when Seiji spotted his wife and baby in the crowd, a strange sense of shame came over him, but also a sudden explosion of determination and power. A powerful uppercut to his opponent's jaw, a solid punch to shake the man's ribcage, and then a haymaker to the side of the guy's head sent his much bigger opponent flying to the floor. He looked up at his wife and his baby and fought back a tear. As he was distracted, his opponent came at him with the biggest punch that had ever been seen under that bridge and knocked him out. When Seiji finally came around and they returned home, he felt a big explanation was required. It's our first wedding anniversary on Valentine's Day, and I was gambling on my fighting to get enough money to take us all to an onsen in Izu. And Etsuko, sporting a subtle smile, put her finger across his lips to shush him up. To see you fight for me and Kenchan like that, well, it made me excited. An onsen would be great, but darling, I'd like to see you in action every week, she said. With Kenchan fast asleep, Etsuko then began planting soft, loving kisses on her husband's face, his chest, his whole body. The end.